Now, climate activists in Johannesburg have vowed to continue protesting at Shell fuel stations and the company's headquarters. That's until the company abandons its seismic survey off the Wild Coast. Shell is planning to look for oil deposits in a 60-kilometre stretch off the Wild Coast between Port St. John and Morgan's Bay. Activists say this will destroy the biodiversity of the area, while Shell says its methods will ensure no significant harm is done. Govan Whittles reports.
About 50 people showed up to a protest at a Shell fuel station in William Nicol to protest the company's intention to conduct seismic surveying on the Wild Coast.
We're trying to spread a message to Shell to tell them that we will not stop until they do, and we're trying to educate everyone around so that they know what the issues behind Shell's evil plan is.
Among them were Extinction Rebellion, the Climate Justice Charter Movement, as well as Defend Our Democracy, and a handful of ordinary residents from across Johannesburg. The people here say they've arrived to protest to register their discontent with the seismic survey and condemn what Shell plans to do because it threatens the biodiversity of the Wild Coast.
Think about what we're saying about the ecological damage when we're believing Shell above our marine experts in the country. We're relying on Shell to give us the body of evidence to make the case that there is harm incurred. They're not going to do it. So that's what we want to communicate with the ecological crisis.
It takes a long time to stop somebody like Shell to do what they want to do. So we need to all form little parties all over South Africa for a fairly long time to be effective in what we're doing. And I think if we all speak as one voice, it'll work.
Shell's a bit greedy, aren't they? We are here to let our voices be known. We want to be heard because at first we tried being civil, we tried going to them, asking them nicely.
They're planning further protests at different Shell fuel stations around Johannesburg and say they're hopeful an interdict attempt will be successful and the seismic survey will be abandoned. Govan Whittles, William Nicol, Johannesburg.
Now, activists also came together and staged protests in Durban. Letiwe Mdluli has that story for us.
Environmentalists are continuing with their calls to stop Shell from performing the seismic exploration of the Wild Coast. Today, various groups came together in protest of the planned exploration in KwaZulu-Natal, with groups coming together in Durban, Richards Bay and Umkomaas. This, of course, follows the failure by some environmental groups to get the courts to intervene. Earlier this week, the Makhanda High Court ruled in favor of Shell continuing with their survey. Environmentalists and those that are against this say the exploration will cause harm to marine life.
We're devastated about the ruling, but I'm sure you know there is a second application that has been put through, and the hearing for that will be on the 14th of December. So we are hoping for better news with that application. And besides that, we're hoping that just the sheer numbers of South African citizens that will not stand for this, that feel that it is unacceptable, and as well as the corporations that are getting on board and are calling Shell out for their activities, will put some pressure on them to do the right thing.
The court ruling or the judge's ruling on Friday, I think that he didn't think it through because the basis was that there was not enough evidence on the impact that it takes on the ocean, which is also the reason why they can't go ahead. There's tons of evidence with the global seismic surveys that have been going on. Oceans Not Oil was actually started based on animals beaching themselves in areas where this was going on. And we believe that that should be enough evidence that it is a devastating impact to our oceans and to the marine life.
The petroleum giant has argued that no seismic survey has caused any harm in oceans, but protesters say this isn't the case.
With over 8,000 blasts going into the ocean every day for 5 months, any animal that uses sound for location, migration, communication, be it the cetaceans, the dolphins and whales, the testudines, the turtles, etc., they're all going to be affected by it. That amount of noise at that volume, that lot for that duration of time, it's going to affect it.
Protesters say they will not give up on their cause until government intervenes. Letiwe Mdluli, Durban.
Now, Cape Town environmental activists say they'll continue putting pressure on Shell and government. eNCA's Monique Mortlock reports.
a giant snook, a whale puppet and drummers on the beach. This is how Cape Town environmental activists have been making their voices heard. They may have been unsuccessful in court last week, but conservation groups say they won't let this stop them. Protesters say they'll continue applying pressure on Shell and government until the seismic survey is stopped.
I'm convinced that it will be successful and that we will manage to stop it. Karoo fracking was stopped through public opposition. We are very determined. We're in it for the long haul. We know it's going to be a long fight. We won't stop.
Groups have asked the scores of supporters who joined them in Cape Town to join the other series of protests taking place over the next few months.
For the freedom of life, for the freedom of the oceans, to make sure that we have a sustainable future for all walks of life, not just humans.
I'll be there if I can, and I heard one of the biggest protests we can do is actually not go to Shell, not support Shell, or to go to Shell to support the car guards over there, give them some tip, have a conversation, and then leave.
Meanwhile, Shell says it has long experience in collecting offshore seismic data and it's taken great care to prevent or minimize potential impact on marine life. A second application for another court interdict to stop the survey is expected to be heard on the 14th of December. Monique Mortlock, Cape Town.
Meanwhile, Shell says they are aware of the protests and welcome what they describe as different views. The company went on to say that they respect the rights of everyone to express their point of view. They're asking, however, that the protests be done in a safe manner.